Cable Bahamas has always been considered the innovator.
People can have confidence in Cable Bahamas as a mobile operator because of our past history. We've proven to the Bahamian community that we are in fact able to manage additional services as a telecommunications company.
Customers expect the best from Cable Bahamas.
The technology that we bring is revolutionary technology because we know that the Bahamian public, they deserve it, and Cable Bahamas is here to bring it to them.
We are ready. Turn us on.
Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned into MB12 Weekend, broadcasting from Cable 12 Studios on Robinson Road. Coming up tonight in news, a heavyweight in the insurance industry says the improper implementation of national health insurance could be devastating to the local economy. A woman pleads for help as hurricane season approaches, plus government tightening its revenue collection measures. I'm Paige McCartney. We've got those stories and more straight ahead on MB12 Weekend. A major player in the local insurance industry says with just more than 6 months before the proposed implementation of national health insurance, loose ends in the scheme like the cost and how it will be paid for could be more of a risk to the economy than a benefit. This as Bahamas Insurance Association Chairman Emmanuel Komalafe says to date government has not responded to the industry's position paper and requests to be more involved in how the scheme is rolled out.
It's a risk to our way of life, a risk to our economy. We're not even focused on the insurance industry because if it's not implemented properly, I think you'd have seen that in the press, there'll be serious repercussions and consequences for the industry. We could see an industry that we have actually built for years, for decades, overnight, become a shadow of its old self, easily, if it's not implemented properly. This is extremely important because we're talking about decades of investments by the private sector in the actual healthcare system. You want to leverage that. I don't know how many persons believe in the room that the public insurer could actually do this better. I won't ask persons to raise their hands as to how many persons who believe that if the government sets up a public insurance company, it will actually be better, more efficient in its operations than the private sector. I'll let you think about that.
Komalafe said the only way to get through these big issues surrounding the implementation of NHI is for government to consult the private sector. He said while BIA members have met with government officials, it was never to discuss the level of involvement of the private sector in building the framework for NHI.
We can have a conversation. Nobody has all the answers. Two heads are better than one. And what has the BIA done? We've come up with a position paper, which is in the public domain. And we said, first of all, let's look at the cost. Let's make sure it's a package we can afford. Because the risk from an NHI perspective, from not getting it right, but potentially not implementing it properly, is that it will be, not only will it impact the insurance industry, because sometimes when we speak as an association, persons think just about the insurance industry. This is a potential risk to the economy. And the economy from the perspective that you want to implement something you can afford as a jurisdiction. Because there will be implications. Ultimately, we all have to pay for it. And yes, taxes, nobody likes to pay taxes generally, but it's our obligation. They say it's the price you pay for civilization. We believe that because private health insurers already have a system in place, they have infrastructure in place, it does not make economic sense to establish a public insurance company for a number of reasons. Our members are not only taxpayers, yes, we have an industry, but also we're taxpayers, which means there's a burden on the public purse. Why would you establish a public insurer when you have insurance companies? Why not leverage that to actually achieve your dream of universal health coverage?
Komalafe was speaking at a meeting of the Rotary Club of East Nassau when he questioned the aggressive time frame government has sought to implement the new scheme. He pointed to the challenges that advanced countries like the United States and Canada have encountered when implementing universal health care and questioned how a small country like the Bahamas with an already crippled healthcare system can seamlessly roll out national health insurance in just several months.
BI has a committee that actually looks at NHI, and we went way back as the 80s because this has been something we've been talking about for quite some time, about 3 decades. And we found that some of the issues within the Sanages report were also in the report generated in 1989. So the issue is, what has happened between 1989 and now with respect to actually addressing those issues? Now, again, the government ought to be commended for actually bringing focus to this, because now it's our hope, and we are very optimistic that all of this will be addressed as part of this report. But what we're saying is, why add to this? The system needs to be fixed.
Costa Rican consultants Senegest Internacional estimate the cost of NHI would range from $362 million for a basic benefits package to $633 million for an expanded benefits scenario. BIA has projected the cost of an NHI scheme would in fact be closer to $1 billion.
We feel, based on our figures, it would cost close to $1 billion. Again, this is dependent on a number of factors, one of them being the containment of cost and the cost of healthcare. The other thing you're looking at, well, they can minimize, you can look at the package, the actual benefits package, and adjust it such that your overall cost is lower. That's another way to look at it, to actually minimize the cost. But the question now is, yes, you have the figures from Sanagest, the BIA has its estimates, but quite frankly, we just don't know. Before you can arrive at a premium that's affordable, you have to address the cost of health. What is driving up the cost of healthcare? You must engage the stakeholders. So a lot has been said about capitation potentially, about putting max on amounts that could be charged, but you have to talk to the professionals involved and agree on that amount. Because a lot of persons talk about the health insurance premiums and the high amount of health insurance premiums, but what drives it? The cost of healthcare. And so we have to look, and then you have to look at the infrastructure.
Komalafe said that Minister of Health Dr. Perry Gomez has advised the BIA that government will reveal more on NHI during the Prime Minister's budget communication next week. He said it's hoped that afterwards government will seek to sit around the table with the private sector. Well, former Progressive Liberal Party Member of Parliament and CPA Phil Galanis is also weighing in on the NHI debate. He says while it's one that is admirable and is certainly not a new concept in theory, it will be new to a system that is prone to leakages and mismanagement. Pointing to reports of nearly $10 million in missing funds at the Public Hospitals Authority, Galanis said, with that in mind, the only way NHI can be successful is if government ensures the fund is protected.
It's not sufficient for us to say that we should not have national health insurance because it's going to cost us more money. Yes, it's going to cost us more money, but let's call the politicians to account to make sure that when they tax us in a way that's meaningful and that the tax is being spent in a way that's efficient and effective. I would hate to see the national health insurance be put under the Public Hospital Authority, because that authority right now receives something in the region of over $200 million of government expenditure, the largest expenditure. And there have been a number of reports in the press by various instances about the inefficient use, the waste, mismanagement of money at the PHA.
We're just days away from the official start of the 2015 hurricane season, but already heavy rains have made it hard for some residents of New Providence to function. Our Kyle Joaquin recently spoke with one family that has had to deal with constant flooding and fears what could happen if a serious storm hits home.
I would like to see, firstly, my yard being repaired. Someone must find the time to come to do something on Market Street South, house number 312.
That's the only request Market Street resident Ruth Rose is making. You may recall the major road work done to many New Providence roads between 2010 and 2013, during which some works had to be done twice. Those roadworks caused numerous businesses to shut down. But years later, and people who live in the area are still feeling the effects. Ruth Rose lives along Market Street South and said since the roadwork was done around 2012, a drain was placed in front of her home, but it never functioned properly. According to Rose, every time it rains heavily, all the water drains into her yard and sits there.
Look out there, there's a drain over there, but it's never clean. So that presents the challenge for me. It never happened before the road was changed and they did what they had to do.
She says there was one time when it rained so hard the water made its way into her home. And with hurricane season fast approaching, she says who knows what will happen. But Rose says she needs her problem to be fixed immediately, as it has even caused her to be injured.
It has been such that I have suffered a fall right out there. I had a surgery, and for 3 years I'm unable to walk. I'm tired of complaining. I hope that I would get the action that is needed.
Rose said she's called the Ministry of Works countless times to assist her, but every time she called, no one was able to help. And making a call to her MP, she said, would be a waste of time.
You came in. Fortunately, that crate is there. Someone came and put 2 crates there, and you can push that to give you access to coming in.
All right, I'm standing on the doorstep of Ms. Rose. For her to even get to the sidewalk, she's going to have to make her way along this flower pot here onto the crate, and eventually she'll make it onto the sidewalk. Just as upset about the constant flooding is Rose's brother, Ednal Rose.
The water, when it rains for a couple of minutes, this water goes as high as 8 inches to 10 inches. You can't even get on the porch. All the water from the road drains right in the yard. No one could even walk in the yard. And it's a risk walking here because you could slip down with the muck. You know, it's a terrible thing, man. All around the corner from Census Road is being repaired. The drains doesn't work and the water just settle. Daytime people can't even pass on the main road.
The family is pleading to anyone within the Ministry of Works to assist. We contacted the Ministry of Works for comment. However, they were unaware of the complaint. Reporting for NB12, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
In other news, Minister of State for National Security Keith Bell says government is still committed to introducing a sex offenders register. It's been nearly a year and a half since Parliament passed amendments to the Sexual Offences Act. Bell said government has been looking at best practices and consulting with relevant stakeholders abroad to determine what approach would best suit the Bahamas. He explained that there are complex challenges with introducing a sex offenders register, namely determining the level of public access and the ultimate impact on the offender being named. Bell said when someone has served their time, whether they are convicted for manslaughter, murder, rape, and sexual offenses, they've paid their debt to society, and where he or she remains a continuing threat, the society must respond appropriately. Asked when government will implement the register, Bell was unable to provide a timeline. He provided a hypothetical scenario where a man convicted of 2 separate sexual offenses is listed on the register. As a result, that person could not live near a school. His name must be provided to the Bahamas Crisis Center, authorities and social services, and the victim, but must be notified. Bell said when the government begins to restrict someone's fundamental rights to that extent, it has to ensure that it's not prohibiting that person from being able to earn a living. Well, police are searching for several suspects responsible for 4 armed robberies that occurred during the past 24 hours and are asking members of the public to come forward with any information they may have to help solve these incidents. Police say the first incident occurred shortly after noon yesterday when a man armed with a handgun robbed a convenience store located on East Street and Victoria Boulevard of a small quantity of clothing before fleeing on foot. A few hours later, police say a woman was walking on Rosetta Street when a man armed with a handgun snatched her handbag and then ran away. Later that night at around 11, police say a man was sitting in his green 1996 Honda CR-V vehicle in the front of his own home located at Highbury Park when 3 men armed with a handgun robbed him of his vehicle and then sped off. And then in a robbery that happened just after 2 a.m. this morning, police say a man was sitting in his gray Ford Mustang in the front of his home in Highbury Park when 2 men armed with a handgun robbed him of cash, a cell phone, and then sped off in his vehicle. And police are also reporting that just before noon yesterday, a man was shot in his leg as he stood in the front of his home at Ideal Close off Soldier Road by an armed assailant. The man is in stable condition in hospital. Police are looking for that culprit in that matter as well.